Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Naden. He is a trailblazing coach who combines neuroscience, spirituality, and psychology to help people unlock their true potential. He hosts the Let Yourself Off the Hook podcast and shares insight on how to overcome challenges, thrive naturally, and live a life of purpose and balance. Liam, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much, Stephen. An honor to be here.
Aha. Hey, I'm looking forward to talking with you. But first, a reminder to our listeners and our viewers, follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters a great deal and is appreciated. Hey, Liam, I am so excited about the technology that exists in the 20th century. I am in South Carolina in the USA. Where are you in the world today?
At this exact moment, I'm in Rome, in Italy.
Uh-huh. I've never been to Rome, Italy. What is it like in Italy? What is that like?
Oh, it's indescribably the most beautiful country, most incredible country in the world. Well, in my opinion. And you
Yeah.
can't really understand what Italy is like, the magic of Italy, until you actually visit it. No picture or, photograph is going to do it justice. It's an incredible country. I love it.
Uh-huh.
Is it together?
Yeah. I can imagine some folks in Madrid, Spain may have something to say about the most beautiful country in the world or some other place.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
just my opinion, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't work for the Italian Tourism Board, but I certainly recommend people come and check it out if they haven't already. It's a life changer.
Yeah.
Mm.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think they'll want you on that tourism board for sure, to share what you just said. Yeah. So as I said, I'm living in the United States. Are you European? Did you grow up in Europe somewhere?
No, I'm a New Zealander originally. So I
Okay.
grew up in New Zealand, and about 12, 11 or 12 years ago, my partner and we took a one-way ticket to Europe, and we've been here ever since. And we've been
Wow.
spending most of our time living on yachts, actually,
Uh,
and traveling all
uh,
around Europe. We visited 15 countries over 8 years.
mm,
We sold our third yacht last year, and now I live in a motorhome, and we're traveling around Europe. So when I say I'm in Rome, that's only today. Tomorrow
yeah,
we're
yeah.
going somewhere different, and next
Uh,
year we're launching another yacht. So we're getting back into sailing. So we're permanent nomads, and most of the time in Europe, although we have been to many other places as well.
that sounds exciting. I've contemplated getting an RV and traveling around, but I have not taken the plunge. What is that like for you, traveling around in an RV?
Oh, well, people look at it as a dream lifestyle and say, you have this total freedom. And we do have this total freedom, which means we can literally wake up in the morning and say, do we want to move on? Do we want to go somewhere else? Do we want to stay
Uh,
here? But the other side of it, and I think it's important to mention this, is a price for freedom, and that is you have to be responsible for your own decisions. You have to live an uncertain life because we never know what's going to happen on a day by day basis. We never know where we're going to be. We might end up in a place that we really like and stay, or we might decide that place sounds really good, and we get there and we don't like it. So we're constantly making decisions, new decisions about where we're going to go and what we're going to do.
mhm.
And that's really one of the keys to my message, which is when you tap into this natural part of who you are, you don't
Yeah.
need to worry about making the wrong decision or about what you're doing. And you can allow your life to unfold as a series of small steps and small decisions. And when you do that, that's when you unlock the real you, the adventurous life. Now, it's not for everybody doing what I'm doing, but
Mhm.
everybody who lives on this planet has a unique blueprint of who they are. And if you actually tap into the part of your brain that knows how to make that happen, how to bring out the best in you,
Uh,
and get out of your own way and stop worrying and stop trying to plan everything all of the time and just allow the next thing to show up, you'll be amazed at what happens in your life. And that's really the core of what I teach now, is the the science behind how that works, behind letting go of goals and trying to figure it all out and allowing a far greater intelligence that's within you to guide you down the best path. And as I say, that's when life becomes really exciting.
Huh. You anticipated my question because I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to ask again because I want you to answer that. How has, traveling in an RV, sailing on the ocean informed your work today? You've already mentioned one thing. How else are you educated by your life experience?
Well, I guess one of the other things is just, and it was a profound shift that I had in my awareness and understanding, if you like, the most profound shift, because I went from being a really successful multimillionaire entrepreneur. I've had 18 different businesses in my life. I've pretty well always been in my own businesses. I went from that life, which included total stress, total frustration, a wall and a mountain of problems all of the time, and getting to the point of thinking all of the time, why can't I be happy? Why is this really what life's all about? This isn't what I signed up for. I've reached all my goals. I'm living all my dreams, but I'm totally miserable. And I've got all of these problems. Maybe it's true what the people have told me, that problems are a natural part of life. You have to overcome challenges all the time. It's the price you pay for success. So going from that mindset, then I actually lost everything and became homeless. But I learned something through that whole experience, which enabled me to create really an amazing life, sailing. And it certainly wasn't in any of my goals and dreams to spend 8 years sailing around Europe and then be in an RV motorhome and now getting my 4th yacht in a decade next year. That wasn't in my plans. But what I'd overlooked, and this is to answer your question, there's a fundamental thing that everybody has overlooked, and that is we are governed, no matter what else you think, you are governed by the laws of nature. Nature rules everything. And I'd most of my life gone against the laws of nature. I'd been fighting everything. I'd been trying to figure out stuff and make things happen and struggle and force things to happen. And I didn't realize there's this whole side of us and this whole side of nature, if you like, that we're a part of that controls everything. And if you don't believe that, try and stop your heart beating or stand on top of a 10-story building and convince yourself that you're going to fly into the air when you walk off. And use whatever technique you like. You can pray, you can meditate, you can change your mind and thinking. But the second you walk off, you're going to go straight down. So the thing that really, one of the biggest shifts, or the biggest shift in my awareness, was there's a side of us that is totally natural. And when we learn to tap into that, and it's got nothing to do with force or struggle or trying to make things happen or trying to work it out or trying to do anything. When we tap into that, and when we learn how to tap into it, which is the core of what I teach now, because this is what I learned personally, when you tap into that, all the magic starts to happen and your life becomes an adventure, not a struggle. And you realize this is why you're here. You're here to have an adventure. You're not some weak, pathetic, frail thing that's likely to get crushed by everything that comes along, by all the problems in the world. There's a side to you that's far more powerful than that. And I'm not talking about any woo-woo spirituality. I'm talking about biology, science, nature, and this whole success blueprint, if you like, that we each have. This is as practical and natural as the law of gravity. But I'd never really realized it existed, and I'd certainly never experienced it. But when I started to, that's when all these magic things happened, because here I am in a motorhome RV traveling around Europe, in a totally free life. I mean, how did this happen? It wasn't through my hard work, but it wasn't through struggling and trying to figure it out and force it to happen. It happened in a completely different way. That was the big...
Well, Liam, you gave us a lot to unpack there. Now, first, you said that you made your first million some years ago. People are going to know, what were you doing? What kind of business were you in to become financially successful early on? And we'll talk about losing it in a moment, but your road to your first millionaire status, what was it like for you?
It was really hard. It was hard work. As I said, I've had 18 different businesses. So I started off after my university days in the wine business, actually. I set up my own wine retail and mail order and importing and teaching and tasting business back in New Zealand. And it was really successful. So that was one of a succession of businesses. But I made my first million the way nearly everyone makes it. It was really tough. I was always struggling, and I was always trying to figure out, what else do I need to do? What's my next goal? How can I be more successful? How can I, earn more money this year than I did last year? What else do I need to learn? What courses do I need to go to? Because on top of running my businesses and really working hard and always forcing things to happen and thinking I'm going to make this happen, I was also a student of success, and I used to go to all sorts of seminars and workshops, and I read all the books from all the gurus on, goal setting and beliefs and motivation and all of these great things, meditation, spirituality. I had a huge library of books and courses, and in those days, tapes and, recordings. And I'd listen to this stuff and I'd watch videos. And as I say, I'd go to even be to your fair country several times to go to seminars with some of the leading names and learning all of this stuff. So that was part of my journey as well, to become an expert on success. And I could quote you any of the great names. I'd read all the books. I'd done all the techniques and processes. And that was part of my journey as well. But it didn't help firstly, in my struggle, because it didn't really get rid of my problems. I always had a ton of stress and problems. And this is the curse of everybody when we're looking to improve our life. We keep thinking, why have I got problems that keep showing up in my life? How can I really overcome them? And how can I get to a stage where, yes, I've got what I want, but I actually enjoy what I've got, rather than, is this all there is? And yes, I'm a millionaire, but I don't really feel that great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like you worked your way into it. You found some good businesses, made a lot of money, and you went all the way to the top. So you also have noted that you lost it, at least some of it, you lost it. What was that experience like for you when you moved from the top, so to speak, of the financial ceiling and then dropped down close to the bottom?
Well, it was a very strange experience, because as I said, it wasn't on my goals list, and because I did lose everything. And how it actually happened, I remember this one experience where I just put the finishing touches on building my dream home. It was a brand new home. It was everything I had always wanted in a home. And it even had a music room in it, because I'd been a musician in my university days. And I always wanted, in my head for years, I said, I want this home and I want it to be like this, and I want to have my own music room. So one particular day I went into the music room of this house and I sat down and I looked out, and I'd created this beautiful panorama of windows that looked straight out onto the mountains across our land. And it was a beautiful sunny day, and I was sitting there, and the sun was shining and everything was there for me to feel amazing. Because I sat and I was sitting and I was thinking, I've done it. I've reached my goals. Here I am, a millionaire. Here I am with my dream home. I've got businesses that are working, that are running. I have the freedom to travel and do what I want. Why don't I feel great? Why do I feel totally miserable? Because as I said, I had so many problems. My marriage wasn't going well, and I just wasn't happy. And as I said, I had a ton of problems. And I remember sitting down and saying to myself, maybe it would be better that I lost everything I had if it meant I didn't lose my soul. Because really that's what it felt like. It felt like I had all this stuff to be grateful for, but I wasn't grateful. And I wanted to be grateful, but I had too many other things that were pulling me down. And it felt like my life energy, if you like, was being sucked out of me. And so, as they say, you need to be careful what you think about, because it was literally within weeks that I did lose absolutely everything. I lost the house, I lost my businesses, my marriage, the music room. I lost it all, and I ended up having to move in and sleep on the sofa in the living room of my elderly mother's apartment. I had nothing other than the clothes on my back, literally. And if anyone's been through that experience of losing everything, you know that it's not just your stuff, because I had no money, I had nothing. It's not just that, but it's your whole identity, your whole sense of trying to make sense of the world and of your life, because your whole life is gone. Everything you know has disappeared. And in that experience, I remember there were two questions that kept coming up in my mind all the time as I was trying to get to sleep on this uncomfortable sofa. And one was, why has this happened to me? Because I was an expert on success. I'd read all the books. I knew about setting goals, about visualizing, about being determined and motivated. And I was certainly determined and motivated. But how come this has all happened to me when I know how to achieve success? I've been to all the seminars, they tell you this is how you become successful. I've learned all this stuff. So that was the first question. And the second question I had was, so what do I do now? Because I was in a foreign town, I had nothing, I knew nobody, I had absolutely nothing. And the funny thing was, both those questions, why has this happened to me? And what do I do now? They both had the same answer. And it turned out the answer to those questions was the absolute key to completely turning my life around. And you know what the answer to those?
Before you give us that answer, though, because most people who experience something like that, who have a major loss, could be any kind of loss, they have some emotions in connection with them. So did you have any negative emotions that were bothering you at this time? If so, what were some of them?
Oh, absolutely. You know, total stress, total almost depression, really, that it's like this all seems so pointless because everything I've worked for in my life is just all gone. And I'm so confused because I thought I was on the right track. I've spent my life trying to understand how to be successful, trying to understand how to be in control of my life so that this sort of thing didn't happen. I always thought I was going to make enough money and be an expert on managing my life so that I would never end up in a situation where I didn't have anything and I didn't know what to do. So there were all those sorts of emotions. Yes, it was really tough. It was awful. But there was also, maybe one of the biggest emotions was confusion. Because as I said, why has this happened to me? And what do I do now? You know, my head was so full of confusing thoughts and all sorts of things. I really didn't know the direction to head in.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you're in this low state, low vibration. How did you just discover your path forward?
Well, the real key to it is the answer to those two questions.
Okay, what's the answer? Yeah, to those questions.
Remember the two questions? The two questions
were... Would you repeat them again for us, please?
Okay, the two questions were, one, why has this happened to me? And secondly, what do I do now? And if anyone's listening or watching and thinking, you know, what the answer might be, I might ask you, well, what do you think your answer would be? Just for anyone, you know, just as a mental exercise. But anyway, my answer to both those questions was exactly the same. And it was the most profound thing that happened to me. And you know what the answer was? I don't know. I have no idea. And why this has happened to me, what to do now. And what I literally did, because I'd reached rock bottom, I did something that if I hadn't been in that situation, I would never have done. But it turned out to be the right thing and what transformed my life or began the process. And that was, I gave up. And I said, you know, I don't know why this has happened to me. I don't know what to do now. I give up. I'm not going to carry on trying to figure it out about what to do and how to get out of this or why it's happened or how to be successful. I'm not going to look for any opportunities. I'm not going to set any goals. My energy is all drained out of me. I've used all my energy trying to figure this out. I give up. I don't know. And that's it. And that's when things turned around, because what I didn't realize at the time and why I had to back engineer it was why did my life suddenly turn around? Because before I knew it, a new relationship showed up for me, a far better relationship than I'd ever had with anyone before. And just before that, a new business showed up in my life. And I remember standing in a shop, actually, somebody, I offered to help them out in their business on an hourly rate for some very low amount because I was desperate and didn't know what else to do. So I was working in the back of this shop. I think you call them a store over there. But I was working in the back of the store doing some admin. And then I walked out to get some fresh air because it was a bit of a stuffy little room at the back. And I saw a man standing there. And more importantly, he saw me and he recognized me. And he's somebody I knew slightly, and I hadn't seen for 25 years. And he looked at me and said, "Hey, Liam." I was like, "Oh, yeah, hello." And he said, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, actually, not very much," which was an understatement. And he said, "I don't know what if you'd be interested, but there's a new opportunity to set up a business just near where I am, where I've got my business. You'd be perfect for that," because he knew my background from business. "Why don't you do it?" And I said, "Well, I just have one problem. I've got no money." But in a few weeks, before I knew it, I had my own new business again and I was making really good money. Now, where did the money come from? Well, that's a bit of a mystery as well. It certainly wasn't the lottery or, I didn't steal it from a bank or anything. But the point I'm really making is these things just came along. And then before I knew it, I was moving off to Europe and sailing on a yacht and doing all these great things. And I remember waking up one day in the Greek islands, another clear moment, profound moment for me. Woke up in the morning and you can imagine being in this beautiful bay and you're anchored in your own yacht in this bay and there's no one else around. And you just have a lovely swim and the sun is shining and it's clear blue sky. The water's amazing. And I got up out of the water and I was drying myself off and I thought, I've made it. This is what I've been looking for all of those years because I'm not just here on my own yacht in the Greek islands with two businesses that are managing themselves and with no problems, no stress, nothing going wrong, everything going really well. And I'm making all the money I need to be here and do whatever I want to do. And I've got a wonderful partner to share it with. And every day is exciting. What's really happened is I feel great. I've got this feeling that I was always looking for without the stress and without the problems. And that's when I decided I need to figure out what I'm doing differently. And that took me back to that moment where I'd given up and I'd stopped trying to force things to happen and allow things to start showing up. And it sounds woo-woo, but there's actually a scientific reason why this happens. So I went on a mission to understand it, and that's of course what I teach now. But this concept of things showing up in your life, it's a profoundly different way of letting your life or living your life. And when you understand the biology behind it, it makes total sense, and you wonder why you do it with struggle. That's certainly what happened to me.
Yeah, a lot of people listening or watching will be saying, "Heck, I want to surrender. I want to just give up. I wonder if my life is going to change." What do you say to them? Because it sounds good, but what do you say to those individuals who want something better to happen? They want to surrender, but then nothing happens.
It's because you don't understand what surrender actually is, with all due respect to the people listening. Because we have this idea about what surrender and letting go means, but we've got completely the wrong idea because what it actually is, it's based on hope, which is based on fear. So we don't really let go. We don't really surrender. We just say we want to. And we say, "Oh, yes, I'll let go." But there's always a part of us that doesn't let go. And the reason we don't let go fully is we don't understand the process. We don't understand the science behind it and how it works. Because can you imagine driving along the road in your car? And this is a bit of a silly example. And I said to you, all you need to do is you just drive the car and it'll do the work for you. And you just make sure you hit the right buttons and press the right levers and keep it in your lane, and everything's going to work out perfectly. You're going to get to, not only you're going to get to where you want to go, or you're going to get to somewhere amazing, but you're going to have a great journey along the way, and you can just enjoy the ride and you can look out the window. But if you didn't understand how a car worked, you wouldn't believe that. You would go, "Oh, this machine, I need to get out every 5 minutes or every minute and check. Oh, the wheels, they're still on." And every time another car came from the other towards you, you'd be terrified and you'd stop the car because you didn't understand the rules of how it worked. And you thought that this car might hit you. And you'd be worried that the engine might blow up or you might go off the road, or it might, you might lose control. So all of that comes from not understanding. So, but in a funny sort of way, when you understand that the cars are all going to stay on the other side of the road, your car is going to work perfectly if you drive it the right way, you are surrendering, aren't you? You are letting go. You're letting the process unfold and you're playing your part. You understand what your part is. Your part isn't to get out and push the car from behind to where you want it to go. Your part is to do your part and allow the machinery to do its job. So this was the key thing to me, because lots of people talk about surrender and letting go and all those sorts of things, but until you understand how it actually works, you're never going to be able to do it. You're only just going to be in a state of hope and wishing and think, well, if I think hard enough, yes, I surrender, and yes, I believe. And faith is another word for surrender, isn't it? Yes, I believe. And how many people out there say, yes, I believe in something, but they don't really. They want to believe in something. And the difference is that line between wanting something and understanding how it works. And when you understand how it works, and this is what I do in my work over helping people understanding this natural success through the brain, if you like, is they go, oh, that's so obvious. Why didn't I think of it before? Why was I like standing behind my car trying to push it when someone comes along and says that's not the way it works? So understanding is, I know it's a bit of a long way of it explaining it, but that's what surrender really is. You can't do it until you understand how the process works.
Well, give us then a glimpse into what it means to let go.
Well, here's another thought for people. Have you ever wondered why the things in your life actually happen? People say, well, I've got all my goals and I know what I want and I'm committed to getting it. But while you're doing that, there's something else going on, isn't there? Because most of the time, if you really think about it, the most significant things that happen to you in your life are never things you've put on your goals list. If people are married or in a relationship, I want to ask you, when you think back to the time you met the person who became your partner or your husband or your wife, now the day before, did you sit down and write, tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, I am going to meet this person and they are going to be the person I end up marrying, and we're going to have this number of children and we're going to live in this particular place and we're going to do all of these things? Now, the reality, that's not how it happens. You're going through your life planning things, and then somebody shows up and it turns out to completely change your life. And that can be in your business as well, or your career, as well as personal relationships. So there's something else at work here other than our conscious thinking, other than us trying to visualize and figure out and decide what we think that we want. So what is that other thing? What is it that brings these life-changing things, unexpected events usually? What makes them happen? They're not chance events. They're not random events. What they are is they're part of this natural biology, this natural success. So it was somebody who said, life's what happens when you're busy making other plans. So what you need to realize is you can tap into that part. And I should also say that part of your makeup, if you like, is also the part that contains all of your inspiration. It's when, sometimes you get this new idea. You might have been working on a problem for weeks and think, oh, I'm so confused. What's the answer to this? And you get out all your, pieces of paper and you try in lists and try and figure it all out. And you talk to people and you go online and looking for solutions and you talk to a coach or therapist or whatever problem you're dealing with or whatever issue. And you can't figure it out. And then all of a sudden, you're not thinking about it. You're doing something else and you suddenly get the answer. And you say, that's the answer. That's so obvious. Why didn't I think of it before? And that's the key. Why didn't you think of it before? Why didn't you come up with the answer? And inspiration, creativity, new ideas, seeing opportunities. Where does all of this stuff come from? Artists, musicians, people like that throughout history have talked about this. They get these ideas and they don't know where they came from. And sometimes we have this, we call it gut feelings. We have this idea that this is the wrong thing to do, or this is the right thing to do. And we have this, we call it the little voice. So we've got all of these different ways of describing what is essentially information, if you like, from somewhere else other than our conscious thinking. And what we can do, we can not only tap into that at will whenever we want. That's the part of our makeup. That's the way we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live in a state of inspiration, imagination, creativity, because that's the state where we solve problems, where we do the right things. We don't do the wrong things. I mean, how many people can relate to this? I used to make some ridiculously terrible decisions all the time. And I'd say, why did I do that? Why did I employ that person? Why did I make that decision? Why did I get into that relationship? Or, and you question yourself and you say, why do I do all these stupid things? Well, there's another part of you, and it's actually to do with your brain, There's a part of your brain that contains all of these good things, your imagination, your intuition, your creativity, new ideas, seeing the solutions to problems. That's the part you're naturally supposed to use. So just like the car, when you learn how to drive that part of your brain, you can just enjoy the journey. It sorts out all of the details for you. So the key is to learn not only that that part exists, which is it does on a biological level. This isn't just a sort of a spiritual idea. There's a biology behind it. When you know that part exists and you know that it's there to drive your life and to make sure you make the right decisions, you don't make mistakes, you don't create problems in your life. And if problems show up, you find the answer to it really quickly and efficiently and easily. When you know that it's there, then all you need to do is tap into start using that, using it consistently, which is about changing some habits, using a different part of your brain. And that's when the magic starts to happen. It never happens through force, struggle, trying to figure it out, grim determination. It never happens that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to stir around with this just a little longer because I can imagine someone saying, how do I live my life now? Do I just get up in the morning and wait until I get an inspiration? How does a person live their life?
People think allowing, because we're talking about allowing here, we're thinking this is some sort of passive state. You just sit in a corner and you meditate. We've all heard of the law of attraction, where the general idea is you just close your eyes, visualize, see what you want, and get into some sort of harmonic vibration, and you attract it effortlessly to you. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about the opposite, because when you're inspired, creative, imaginative, you are incredibly productive. You're incredibly active. You do a lot more. I've written lots of books. I've got programs and courses, as well as traveling all the time. I've never been so productive as when I'm in this state in this, what I call the creative brain state. So it's not about being passive. It's the opposite. You do more, because this is also where your motivation comes from. You're excited. So you do a lot of stuff. You're out there. And we know people, when we ourselves are excited, we tend to do a lot. We don't just sit back and feel, at peace. I mean, there are times to be like that. There's times there's action and there's inaction, but you actually achieve a lot more. But again, there's this fear, isn't there? Because people say, oh, I don't want to allow and wait for it to happen because I might be waiting a long time. That's based on fear. And fear is the enemy. Fear is what blocks this part of your brain. That's why that really is allowing. You can't be afraid and you can't block it through your stress and frustration, because that is what's going to block it. But when you allow it, man, you just want to do 10 times more than what you're doing because it's so exciting.
Yeah. Now I'm hearing what sounds like a spiritual teaching on the one hand, and also neuroscience or brain science on the other hand. Is it both or is it one?
Absolutely. And the scientific part, just to explain that, because probably people can get a sense of the spiritual part, because it says throughout the Bible, do not worry about what you shall eat, drink, and wear. It will all be provided for you, just like it is with the rest of nature. So we're told constantly in spiritual terms to let go and allow, and you will be, everything's going to work out fine. But it turns out this has a biology as well, because, we mentioned before about the laws of, like the law of gravity, and that nature rules everything. Nature has rules about success. And if you were to ask any biological scientist, well, why, how does nature work? What's the purpose of life? Why do things operate? Is there any sort of rules of nature that design for nature? And every biological scientist will tell you, yes, nature has one primary purpose. It's what everything is set up to do in nature, and that is to survive. Everything in nature, and we're the same. Our primary purpose, the most important priority that we have biologically, is to survive. And how do we survive? Well, the best way to survive is to thrive. In other words, to be the best that you can be. And it turns out that every biological organism is wired to be the best that it can be so that it has the greatest chance for survival. So in human terms, what does being the best that we can be mean? It means being our best physically with whatever we have, but it also means being our best mentally and emotionally. In other words, it means being happy. It means being fulfilled. It means loving your life, being grateful. It doesn't mean having stress and problems. Stress and problems don't help you thrive. They don't extend your life in any way. They do the opposite. You don't thrive through stress and problems. So our natural biological state is this thriving state, is this being the best that we can be, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And we've been provided, like every other living thing in nature, with something to make sure that happens. It's like a motor car. We've been provided with a brain. The brain is a mechanism or a machine whose sole purpose is to ensure that we reach this state of thriving, that we are our best physically, mentally, and emotionally, so that we have the greatest chance for survival. And it knows how to do all of these things. It's the most incredibly powerful computer that exists in the universe. Everybody is in agreement with that. So it has the power to ensure that you have the best life possible, but you have to use it the right way. If you block it, if you stop it doing its job, what happens if you block any machine from doing its job? What shows up? Problems. You get a problem with the machine. It doesn't do the job it's supposed to do, So this is where the biology comes in. And it's explained through spirituality as well, to say there's a part of you that is there to make sure that you thrive. That's the part you need to rely on. That's the part you need to use to run your life. And you don't do it when you're trying to force things to happen, because it will actually do the job for you.
Well, let's face it, in today's world, people are reporting high levels of depression, anxiety, and the list, of course, goes on. How, and I would think my assumption is that a lot of people are struggling with something that happened or something that they think will happen that would make them sad. How does a person in that situation get out of it? Using your methods, yeah.
It's a process, it's a bit like when you're trying to heal your life on every level, because I've been there as well. I know what it's like to be homeless, and I'd spent decades building up my life, and everything I knew and everything I thought was real just got taken away from me. It was an absolutely awful place to be. So I have been, it's not like, people are just saying, listening out there and going, oh, it's all well for you, Liam, to say, don't worry about my problems, and, I can get over my problems. I know what it's like to have problems. I had how many people would like to lose everything and become homeless and just have no future? So I know what it's like. So I'm not negating that people don't have problems. But here's an interesting thing to think about, that maybe, just maybe, if you accept that we're not biologically designed to have problems, then maybe there's another way to use your mechanism, use your brain to not only deal with the problems that you've got, but to make sure you don't get any more. It's a little bit like, and to answer your question, what do we do? If someone wants to lose weight and you go to a dietitian or whatever, now the dietitian is going to say, you say, I've got this problem, I want to lose weight. I've got this really big problem. My health is not good and I want to lose weight. Now the dietitian is going to say to you, well, the reason, forget everything else. The fundamental reason why you're overweight and you're not healthy is you're not eating the right foods and you're not exercising. So I can tell you what to do, and it's very simple. Eat the right food and do some exercise. In other words, change your habits. Create a habit of doing things differently in your life. And you could say, well, that's very simple, and that's the obvious answer. So how do I do that? That's the harder part, because you have to change a whole lot of habits. You have to become aware of all of the habits that are making you eat the wrong foods and not moving very much. You have to change, and that is difficult. But you know that it's very simple what you have to do. So to change your life, and as I say, this is from not only scientific proof and spiritual proof and my own experience, but the experience of helping others do this as well, which is what I do. It's a very simple way to change your life. You need to change the way you use your brain. You need to change the way you use this machine so that you're allowing this creative part, if you like, what I call the creative brain, this is a physical location. This isn't an idea. This isn't like your subconscious. This is a physical part of your brain that exists. You need to activate and allow that part, or use that part, to drive your life. Now, when you do that, that's when you're going to clear up your problems. You're going to not create new problems. But you need to understand how it works, what habits you need to develop to do that, and you need to develop those habits.
Okay, but so could you give us a couple of tips on how to use that machine properly?
Well, the really simple answer, and it's written in the Bible 365 times. So I'm going to tell you what to do, but I don't expect
Mhm.
people are going to do it because they won't understand how it works and how you actually do it. But the thing that blocks this part of your brain, we're talking on a biological level here, the thing that
Mhm.
stops all of your creativity, imagination, resourcefulness, ability to solve problems, the thing that keeps you stuck in blocking that part of your brain is fear. When you feel fear, and by fear, I'm not just talking about, terror. I'm talking about stress, worry, anxiety, frustration, anger, sadness. When you feel any of those, what happens on a biological level is you shut down that part of your brain because you're activating a different part of your brain which has a different role to play in your life, and you're misusing your brain. So if you really want to know what to do, cut out fear from your life. And as I mentioned the Bible, 365 times it says three words: be not afraid. Now, it's not saying as a nice idea. This is an instruction. This is an instruction on how you're designed biologically to live your life to make sure that you thrive so that you have the greatest chance for survival, is to not be afraid. Now, how do you do that? People say, well, how do I not be afraid? Well, that's what you need to learn, because there is a way to do that. And that's what I teach. And primarily, without you even realizing it, most of this has happened throughout your entire life, so you think it's normal, but you have these triggers, these things that make you feel suddenly not good. And often you don't know why you suddenly feel stressed or angry or unhappy, or you have these thoughts, or why isn't my life going the way I want it to, and why is it so hard, and why do I have all these problems, and why do I feel depressed? You don't realize on a biological level what's happening. This is a trigger that's activating a part of your brain that's bringing all of those thoughts and feelings out in you. So, but it's a trigger. So you need to identify what the triggers are. And it really is quite simple. And I work with people to help them do this, is that once you identify the triggers and stop activating that part of your brain, this other part of your brain comes to life, and suddenly things show up. You make better decisions and all the good stuff happens.
Hmm.
So it really comes down to this: how you're using your brain. It's as simple as
Mhm.
that.
Hmm. So do not be afraid is one thing we can do immediately. Is there something else we can do immediately?
Well, do you think we can stop being afraid immediately? I think that's a big ask. That's all you need. You see, the other thing is this is so uh, it's really so simple. When people
Uh-huh.
get this, because here's the point: this is all natural. We're naturally designed to live a certain way. We're not designed to have to go and sit on a mountaintop and read books for 30 years to figure out how to live our life. We're designed to live naturally. We don't figure out how to make our heart keep beating, or or keep breathing or whatever. This all happens naturally. Thriving happens naturally. You look at the rest of the world, in nature. I'm so lucky. I'm traveling all the time. I'm spending all my time in nature, and I observe how perfect it is, how it thrives, how it's being the best that it can be. Every living thing. We're the only exception. So it's not designed to be difficult. It's What's difficult is changing the habits of a lifetime and changing all of these ideas that we've had from the day we were born about life's hard and you have to work and
Mhm.
struggle and you have to, figure things out, and you're weak, and you have to fight for everything you get, and problems are natural and problems are good for you, and all of these things. We have to unlearn the habits of a lifetime that have kept us stuck.
Mhm.
So it's not actually that complicated. But if you want to think about a trigger, you know
Mhm.
it's as simple as looking at the triggers. And as I say, this is what I help people do. But think about anything in your life that makes you feel bad. Here's an obvious one: watching the news.
Mhm.
Now, why do we watch the news? Because most of the time it makes you feel bad, doesn't it? Oh, there's wars going on, and there's, all these disasters and all these threats to our survival. And well, it makes you feel bad, doesn't it? And what you don't realize is, irrespective of what they're saying on the news, and how do you know it's even true anyway? Most of the time, what we're told never turns out to be true, but particularly the bad stuff, we're still here. But not only that, we don't realize it's active, that the mere fact that you're watching it, whatever it is, if it makes you feel bad, you're finished, because you're shutting down the part of your brain that is designed to make you thrive,
Mhm.
irrespective of what it is. And it's a little bit, an analogy is, if I came up to you and said, I want you to drink this glass of liquid, well, you'd say, well, what is it? I said, well, it's hydrochloric acid. Now you'd say, what are you talking about? I'm not going to drink that. And I said, no, you should drink it. Why wouldn't you drink it? You'd say, well, because I understand that it would kill me or certainly damage me severely if I drank that. And you'd say, no, no, look, if you don't look, don't worry. Just if you believe and and just have faith and trust and have strength, it won't really harm you. You'll be fine.
Mm.
And then you
Mm.
said, no, look, you don't know what's going, you obviously don't understand what that does to the body. I don't care, none of that's going to work. And then I tried the stick on you and said, look, you have to drink it. Everybody else is drinking it. Everybody else is going to drink it. And if you don't drink it, I'm going to make sure that you lose all of your friends, all of your family, all of your money, everything you have, and you're going to end up on the street. Now, you're still going to say, it doesn't matter what you say, what the justification, what the reason, what threat there is to drinking that. I understand that if I put that on my lips, life's over. And that's what fear does. And this is why I teach people about what fear really is on a biological level. Because when you understand what happens to you, it's like the hydrochloric acid. And you say to yourself, it doesn't matter the justification. I don't care if World War III is about to break out. No, I'm not going to have a trigger that's going to activate the wrong part of my brain, because then I'm finished biologically. So that's what it comes down to. But, try stop watching the news for a while and realize that your life is no worse off for not watching the news. If something really happens that you need to know about, somebody will tell you because everyone else is watching the news, aren't they? So
Yeah, I got you right. Well, look, one takeaway for me is that you're saying that our brain is here to serve us in a good way, and we need to learn how to use it properly. That's one takeaway I'm getting from this? Is that reasonable from your standpoint?
absolutely. Your brain is there to make sure that you thrive. And if you're not, I'm sorry to say, it's pure biology. If you look at an animal that's not thriving, you'd say it's not doing something right.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's there to serve you. If you want to get into the spiritual religious side, this is how God works through you. This infinite
Mm.
intelligence that is far more incredible than anything we might think. And
Uh-huh.
you're there to thrive using that infinite intelligence. And part of that is being in the right place at the right time, saying the right things, doing the right things, seeing the answers,
Mm.
seeing what you should be doing with your life, knowing what you should be doing with your life. Instead of trying
Mm.
to figure it out, allow these things to come to you, this inspiration, and get into it. It's been called being in the flow. We've all heard that expression, being in the zone. Athletes, great achievers, talk about this state of natural flow where amazing things are happening. And very occasion,
Yeah.
we probably experience that in our own lives as well, where everything's going like clockwork and we think this is great. That's our natural biological state. That's the way we're
Mm.
designed to live, because that's the state of thriving. And that's when all the good stuff happens.
Well, I tell you what, you're giving us or giving me a lot to think about. Is there anything else in your heart that you want to share with us that we haven't talked about today?
Maybe just one little idea, and that is, I don't know how much time we've got to talk, but very briefly, give up setting goals. Stop this
Mm.
whole goal setting nonsense. Everybody's saying you have to have your goals, and I've got my goals and I'm working on it. That is completely and utterly biologically nonsensical to have goals. It doesn't make any biological sense. And that's why it doesn't work. And if you're wondering, and if you're really honest with yourself, and one of the first things I say with people if they want to do work with me privately is I say, well, what percentage of your goals do you reach that you've ever set? And they go, well,
Mm.
that's an interesting question. And I say, is it 100%? Is every goal you've ever set, you've achieved it? And they say, well, no, not really. So is it 90%? Is it 80? We get out, is it 50%? Do you achieve half of the goals that you've set for yourself in your life? Nothing like it. The average, the accepted figure is between 2 and 3%. And that is the reality. Everybody's out there thinking we all need to have goals, we all need to set goals, but nobody's really achieving goals. Sometimes you hear of a guru who tells you, oh, I've achieved all my goals. It's not really true. So if it's not working, why are we doing it? And the reason it's not working is it doesn't make any biological sense. Just like the law of
Mm.
gravity wouldn't make any sense. It's not going to work for you to go up in the air. goal setting doesn't work. And here's the reason, or there's a lot of reasons, but here's the fundamental reason. The way your biology works is your brain, your creative brain, God, if you like, infinite intelligence, it knows how to make you thrive. It knows what you should be doing. In other words, it knows what your goals should be. It knows how to make you the best that you can be. And as I say, when I was on my mother's sofa, if someone said, if somehow I'd figured it out that my ultimate goal, or what's going to make me really fulfilled and happy, was sailing around the world and traveling and sharing all these new ideas about the brain and success and helping people get unstuck from all of their problems and really starting to thrive. If someone had told me that, I thought they were insane. It wasn't anything I'd thought of. So your goals are not there's the odd exception, but usually they're not something you've ever thought of. What's best for you? And the reason for that is the way your brain works and the way nature works, because one of the laws of nature is the law of efficiency, conservation of energy, which means that everything is designed, and nature has had millions of years to figure this, the best way to do this, to make sure that you expend the least amount of energy for the maximum amount of result. I mean, imagine millions of years ago, we had to conserve energy because we mightn't have found food for a week. So you still had to have enough energy to survive and catch the food when it showed up. So we're designed to conserve energy as well. And what's the most efficient, energy efficient way to make sure you thrive and become the best that you can be? Well, it's not for your brain to tell you what your ultimate goal is. Because what would happen, as I say, if my brain had told me that was my ultimate goal, is sailing and teaching, what would I have done? I would have, if I'd written it down, looked and said, that can't be right. How do I know I want that? I don't know anything about any of that stuff. And I don't even know that what I want. That's crazy. What would I be doing? I'd be questioning, doubting, analyzing, trying to figure it out. I wouldn't be doing anything to move towards that goal. So I wouldn't be being biologically efficient. I'd be wasting all of that energy. And even if your brain came along and said, okay, well, this is where I want you to go. Here's the next 10 steps that I want you to take. What would I have done then? What does anyone do if you're given the next 10 steps that you're supposed to take in your life? You look at the list and you go, step number 3, I'm not sure if that would work, or would it really lead to step number 4? And I don't know how to do step number 2 or step number 4. What are you doing? You're analyzing, doubting, trying to figure it out, and you think, oh, maybe I need to go and get some more information and figure out if that's how to do it. You're wasting all of that biological energy again. So the way your brain works, naturally, biologically, the most efficient way is to show you the very next step. And that's it, nothing else. And that ties back into your thing about, do you just sit and wait for nothing to happen? Your brain is going to show you, when you're in the state, you're going to see the next step very clearly. And when you take the action without worrying about where you think it's going to go, or analyzing if you're going to make a mistake, or, is this what I should be doing? When you just keep taking that next step, every time the next step after that shows up. And and that's the most biologically efficient way to do it. So don't have this idea of you think you know where you should be going, because you can't know where you should be going. The part of your brain that does all that thinking is not this creative part. That's another part of your brain which is very, very limited. Your thoughts are very limited. Your thoughts don't create your reality. This part of your brain creates your reality. So get out of this whole idea of anything else other than putting yourself in the state where you're removing the triggers, you're allowing your creative brain to do its magic, and then just take the next step. And that's how life becomes magic. And it's the way biology works. All of nature operates in that way.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, look, I enjoyed talking with you today. You've given me a lot to think about. I'm going to think about this. So thank you so much for being with me.
Oh, thank you very much, Stephen, for having me. It's been a real pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Naden, a transformational coach and author. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day.
You are not alone. Just keep on going. Just press on, press on.